The season of Advent calls us to a journey. We stand at a juncture here,
where we may look back to the past and what God has done for humanity to make this present possible.
We also look to the future, to the time of fulfillment when the Messiah will come again.
Advent is a time of increasing light.
Watch it begin to glow, even in these dark streets.
Tucked away in the southernmost foothills of the great Lebanon mountain range, nestled in a valley and hidden from view of the wide world, a tiny hill country village, Nazareth, is the least known, the least noble, the least romantic, and the least remembered on our stops on our Advent journey.
Nazareth is also the least notorious.
Nazareth lacks what Jerusalem has:
the hustle and bustle of a busy metropolis, the history of warfare of a mountain fortress, the blood and the fire of centuries of sacrifice.
And Nazareth is no Bethlehem.
Here the tumult of Caesar's census will not attract the house and lineage of David. Here the wise men will not visit. Here the ages will not urge a young firstborn to sleep in a heavenly place. Peace. Here babies are safe from Herod's wrath.
It is not to say that Nazareth has always been a backwards, no place populated inbred by hillbillies.
After all, it was from this region that the judge Gideon recruited his small army, a group of men, unsophisticated yet sturdy and faithful, to drive away the Midianite horde.
It is a glory that Israel has never forgotten.
As on the day of Midian.
But for now, quiet and secluded, in its charming little green valley, Nazareth is no less than it appears, a safe and secure, unpretentious village, a hometown. That indeed is what this place is, a hometown.
A place where family farms are handed down along with the knowledge to work them.
Where little girls are taught to weave and cook and sew and grind grain, and little boys are taken to the fields and taught their trades.
Where young men and women are joined in arranged marriages.
Where whole families work together to build their sturdy stone homes.
Where children are birthed.
And ancestors are buried.
This is a place where families are nurtured, where homes are established, for this is Nazareth, a hometown. The farmers working throughout the centuries on land handed down from generation to generation have been up since before daybreak,
practicing the ancient rituals involved in urging life out of their rock-strewn fields.
There, out of his field, silhouetted in the rising sun, a young man scatters his seed using a technique taught to him by his father. Broadcasting, it is called.
A term which will, centuries from now, be adopted to describe the idea of disseminating ideas and information to many people.
It is not the most accurate, efficient way of planting. Seed is often lost in the weeds or baked on the rocks or eaten by birds, but it is a quick, time-proven method of sowing.
One that is never forgotten by someone who has called this region home.
Look, do you see the farmer leaving that small home, carrying his plow? He rounds the corner and heads back out to his fields, late to finish that last of his plowing.
Several days ago, his plow, the most valued tool of his trade, was broken while he was working on his brother's field.
Similar accidents happen often in this rocky soil of Galilee, a fact which keeps the owner of that house busy during the planting season.
The owner of that house is the town carpenter, general handyman, who repairs all of the broken wooden tools, plows, harrows, hoes, mallets, and occasionally builds new ones.
Jacob, the father of this young man, was respected as a craftsman, a fair man of business.
And people say that he taught his son Joseph well. The quality of his workmanship is held in high regard, even in many of the surrounding towns. His values, as well as the techniques of the trade, have been passed down from of old.
Carpentry, as a trade, is traced back in this culture to Noah, the builder of the ark. Carpenters fashioned implements of the temple, even the Ark of the Covenant.
And Joseph, a sturdy link on this long chain, will pass on his knowledge to his sons.
Like the great prophets of old, strangely silent in the past few centuries, who saw beyond the daily life of a nation to the will and nearness of the Almighty God, so Joseph looks at wood in terms of potential.
And promise.
Each board, each scrap, each tree is clothed in his eyes with the vestiture of
Possibility.
When building the great temple of our God, Solomon sent for cedars from Lebanon, and for good reason. His nation lacked large trees.
This is, after all, a country where trees are scarce, where each piece of wood is valued, appraised, and treasured. Lately, however, this young carpenter has acquired two scarce and therefore valuable pieces of long wooden beams, beams the length normally reserved for use as rafters for building homes. This is a hometown after all. This personal time, there's so little personal time during this planting season, he has been fashioning them, sanding and smoothing and turning and shaping them into what some would call a foolhardy waste of good lumber. His heart, however, is motivated more by love than the foolishness of this matter.
With those beams, he is building a gift for his beloved, his betrothed.
Building a loom unlike any other, and perhaps in the entire region. And in his own way, in the building of his loom, he's building a home here in Nazareth. A hometown. Long beams scarce in this region of few trees, so most looms are short, capable, therefore, of producing only short bolts of cloth. But this loom, over 10 feet in length, will be able to produce a treasure indeed, a long bolt of cloth so long that it can be sewn into unheard of commodities, long flowing cloaks, big warm blankets, and most treasured of all, beautiful seamless robes woven from top to bottom.
One day, a robe from this very loom, this gift of love, will be held in esteem in a most unlikely place by a group of Roman soldiers who have gambled to see whose it would be. There, in that place, at that time, another young comforter will gaze at another tree.
A tree whose long beams would normally be reserved for building homes.
With eyes that see possibility and promise.
And hope.
And there, with those beams, the carpenter will build the largest home of all.
Nazareth, the quiet hometown, appears to be waking up now. Further down the valley, you can even hear the clank of iron against the stone. Work is beginning in the limestone quarry. The masons of Nazareth are fashioning 6 large stone water jars.
Their buyer, a wealthy gentleman from the town of Cana, 7 miles north, will not become a father for another 12 years. 3 years after that, the girl who will one day marry that young man in Cana will be born.
But even now, the dark streets of this small hometown Nazareth are beginning to glow with light, the light of,
Promise.
even now, the heavenly ones planning preparations are being made for a wedding, the beginning of a family, the
Beginning of a home.
And those stone jars will become a sign of the Creator's plan for humanity in the presence of the Incarnation.
Speaking of families, look there. A young woman, still wearing the ceremonial garb of mourning, lifts her orphan boy and bids farewell to their Nazareth kinfolk to begin their 4-mile journey down the road to Nain.
A journey back to loneliness and sorrow.
And you see the bearded man just now cresting the large hill? That is the village rabbi, followed by a long line of his students. Listen to them chanting, watching them nod, memorizing their law and writings and prophets.
The same way their relatives did and their ancestors before them.
To the simple, repeated, melodic cadence of a chant. Soon that same teacher will instruct another bright young boy in the prophets.
I saw one looking like the son of Adam.
The Psalms.
My God, why have you forsaken me?
In the Torah.
Love your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Lessons that will be well remembered and well used.
This rabbi is not the only religious leader who will be visiting Nazareth. Years from now, after the temple at Jerusalem is destroyed, and the new city of Aelia Capitolia is dedicated by Emperor Hadrian to the god Jupiter, members of the priestly families, excluded from the new city, will choose to relocate to Nazareth, as well as several other towns in this region. Here, they will finish compiling the great Jewish book of teaching, the Talmud.
Strange that after years of being degraded as too cosmopolitan by the staunch religious elite, it will be this region, Galilee, which will spawn the great Jewish writings of the era.
Here, in this whole town, the house of Israel will be put into order.
Indeed, someday something good could come out of Nazareth.
But some years before that, in this local synagogue, the rabbi who is now conducting hilltop classes will hand a scroll to another young teacher. Moments later, all of them will be threatening to cast that young rabbi off to that very hill to his death. They will not be ready, even in this hometown of Nazareth, for God to make his home here, for God to join the family of humanity and thereby invite us into his.
Indeed, what we seek to behold here is not mighty kings or rulers or empires or even religious leaders. This is Nazareth, after all.
A hometown.
No, we have journeyed here to Nazareth to see. Oh, but wait, there she comes. Do you see her? There with the water jar balancing on her head. That girl, a mere teenager, has spent the morning tending to the laundry with her mother. Now, having used the water collected earlier, she returns to the well for more. It is late, too late in the morning for this chore. Earlier, she gathered water with the other young girls from the village, sharing them with the hometown news. But now, she walks alone, this young one, and rounds the bend, lost from sight behind the trees. And there she finds the place that she has found so many times before, a pool of water collecting the fresh, bubbling stream that flows nearly a mile from the spring up the hill. And there she performs her family chore, dreaming perhaps about her own family and the home she will soon build in this hometown of Nazareth. And even now, as promised by God's prophet so long ago,
God's light begins to dawn.
Even now, the Creator whom all families in heaven and on earth are named.
The Creator who once looked at a lump of clay and saw in it the vesture of
possibility,
The Creator.
Who looked upon a rib
and envisioned even more.
The Creator.
Who in the humble, caring posture of a kiss bent low
And breathed the holy wind of life.
The Creator.
Who took clay and rib and breath and love and miracle of miracles and formed them into
Family. This great Creator now sends forth his message.
Sends forth the divine spirit.
Sends forth divine seed.
And here in the dark streets of this small country town,
In the dark alleys of this wide world, in our lives and our homes,
In the dark secrets of that young girl,
God comes home.